So you can also share the recording with them. I'll have it on my website for probably about 3 weeks, so you can go back and refer to it during that time. And then finally, as I mentioned before, we're all from the Commonwealth. I think all 250 of us are from there. So please, we're have a common goal of serving these students. All right, so into the actual content. Teachers, and this is a quick quote, teachers in the most exciting and effective differentiated classrooms don't have all the answers. What they do have is optimism and determination. Y'all, it is 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, and a lot of our, for a lot of us, it's our first week of summer, and you are sitting in front of your computer screen to learn because you care so much about your students. And you have 250 peers who have signed up for this session as well, who all did the same thing. And, you know, I can't say anything higher than you guys are dedicated, you're determined, and you wouldn't be here if you weren't optimistic. If you didn't think there is some way that these resources can help me to better serve my students, you wouldn't be here. So I really wanted to bring this in just because we will be talking a lot about differentiation, and I also thought that these characteristics of optimism and determination were valuable and applicable here. So we have kind of 4 different parts to our session. We're going to start off with an introduction where we look at what these 2 terms, choice board, hyperdoc, what they mean, and then also how they overlap some. Then we'll spend some time looking at choice boards. I'm going to give you one template that we're all going to play around with, and then you'll have time to explore probably like 30 different models that you can pick from. And then we'll kind of repeat that same process when we get to Hyperdocs. And then finally, we'll have some time to wrap up and provide feedback and do a short Q&A at the very end. So our introduction. First, and this will be a part where I am reading to you quite a bit or talking with you a little bit. And then a lot of our session will be your own exploration time. So just, you know, have that in mind as I do talk in this intro part. So when we look at choice boards, some people call this a learning menu, and to me, those are really synonymous. Either way is perfectly fine. And these are really great tools to help with differentiation in your classroom because it allows our kids to have choice when it comes to what content they access, how they process information and grow within this concept, and then also what the product or products could look like. So we always want to think about meeting our students' needs in terms of what their skills are, what their interests are, what their abilities, all of those different pieces are important when we put these learning menus together. Next, students are able to select 1 or more methods of engaging with the content. So with the choice board, we do want them to, you know, be able to find different pathways that seem appropriate for them. And again, we'll look at many ways that you can structure this. Just a heads up that choice board started off as in the physical format, but now most of the time we see it being used through technology so that we can have links to resources. We can have different types of learning tools where students can create and publish their work as well. And then, as I said before, it values our students' gifts, interests, and personality. And especially as we look at the start of the 2021 school year, where we may not physically be with our students at the beginning of the school year, being able to allow our students to shine through with their personality and interest will allow us to really be able to know who these students are, even if we aren't doing so in the way that we've done our entire career so far. All right, so Hyperdoc has a lot of these same traits. Often there is a lot of choice involved. Often it is augmented through technology. Now, one thing that was really a big shift for me when I started learning about Hyperdocs was the subtle difference between creating a lesson plan and creating a learning plan. When I was in the classroom, as a teacher, my lesson plan was all about what I was doing. It was very teacher-centered. And when I started thinking about things as a learning plan, it shifted to being student-centered. What are my students doing? How are they engaging with this content? What types of products are they producing? How are they giving each other feedback? And that became integral when I started this mind shift for myself. So with this, Hyperdocs can be a mix of individual, small group, and full class artifacts. So just because, and I know a lot of you were in the Google Classroom session yesterday, just because we do that make a copy for each student, it doesn't mean that our students have to do everything in isolation. Just like in this session, we're gonna have some things where you're off exploring on your own, but then we have this watering hole type of thing where everybody's coming back together and being able to report and share out together. And we want to build those community pieces into our Hyperdocs. Finally, there are templates that are already created that are based on established lesson plan structures. So yes, I'm saying lesson plan down here, and earlier I said learning plan, but the structure of a 5E lesson plan format, when we do this shift, is still a valuable format that we can build from. So we're going to see how that works. I will say that when I first was introduced to Hyperdocs, I thought it was just a Google Doc that had links on it. And when I got to sit down with some of the people behind Hyperdocs and they showed me, no, all of this is based on research-based lesson plan design, I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm sold, and let's move forward with it. And since that point, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, I've really been an evangelist in trying to tell people how amazing Hyperdocs can be. All right, so we are going to transition into choice boards at this point, and I want to start off with a short video. Now for this, I'm going to make sure I do this and share. Okay, so we're going to watch this short video about what choice boards are.
Hi, I'm Martine Brown.
And I'm Tyra Clayton.
And today we're going to talk to you about digital choice boards.
Digital choice boards, they allow students to choose an activity or activities that will complete for an assignment or to demonstrate understanding. Digital choice boards, students can choose activities that can be described or hyperlinked. You can consider telling students to complete activities in a row, or you can also have a column. It just depends on your student. Each column or row on digital choice board can be focused on a particular skill or standard.
When we take a look at an example like the one listed, you can organize your choice board into a 9-square model and 3 in a row. Teachers can choose what they want to differentiate. For example, you can differentiate what students will produce, like this example, where students can produce different types of creations, or how students will engage with different learning styles, which level of complexity students are ready for, or which activities appeals to the students' interests.
Okay, so I wanted to start off with that, first of all, because we will be looking at this tic-tac-toe or bingo board template together first. That is a very good entry point for a lot of us when we look at what choice boards can be. But they also broke down why we might do some of these skills and how we would set it up. So at this point, I'm going to continue on to slide 12. On that slide, and it might be good for you to return to your slides at this point as well. This is a model on the right-hand side of a very simple tic-tac-toe choice menu. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and click on that image on slide 12 that's on the right-hand side. When you do that, it's going to open up into a new window or a new tab and give you the choice to use that template. And that's what we're going to do. This will give you your own copy of the tic-tac-toe choice menu. I'll let you guys know that I got this template from shakeuplearning.com, a really amazing site for lots of educational resources. And I'll point you towards some more of their resources in just a little bit. So again, let's all head to this website. Now we have our own copy of the tic-tac-toe choice menu, and we're going to talk through a little bit about what we see and then also how we might start structuring things in here. All right, so some things that we can see within this, it says start with number 5 and then make 2 other choices to create your tic-tac-toe. So that's our direction to our students. Now, real quick, if we do number 5, one thing that you might notice is that we have to go, of course, we have to go through the center, but it also makes it where we have to have both one of these greenish blue squares, and we also have to have one of these light yellow squares. So I want you to think through how we might be able to mix in some academic skills and maybe some community building or social emotional learning into this choice board. So we might make it where the blue ones are all the academic standards or approaches to what we're doing, and then the yellow would be create something that represents your family, or what you used to think and what you're thinking now, or whatever it might be, some sort of reflection that we get those products in there as well. And then 5 could either be a common starting point where everybody does a pre-assessment, or maybe it's the ending point where everybody takes those products that they made through their choice board and they put them onto a Padlet, they put it into a Google form or some sort of submission so that everybody can see it. Or maybe it's go to Flipgrid and reflect on what you've learned, or one barrier that you overcame, or whatever it might be. Now, when we get into the actual construction of our choice menu, I want you to think about what are the different components that we see on our screen right now. So one, we see a table, right? So we have a 3x3 grid table. If we were trying to do that from scratch, we'd go up to Insert, come down to Table, and then just move till we get that 3x3 option. Now this one's already built for you, but that would be the process that we'd want to do. The next thing that we see, these are colored. So if I go into this square, and it's selected right now, I can go to my paint bucket tool and change the background in here. So now it's the color that I want. So maybe if you're doing, maybe you want it to be your school's colors. And so half the squares are one color, half are the other color, or whatever it might be. You can completely customize it that way. Now, when we start to actually build out our choice board, we'd go into our different squares, type in review the video on the website and record your own response, and we can start to put that in there. Now, I know some of us were in that session yesterday on Docs, others weren't. If I wanted to add a link in here, I would highlight the word or words that I'd want to be linked, come up and find this chain icon, and now I can put in whatever web address that I want. So if I wanted to be youtube.com, obviously I'd want to find that specific video, but for this case, I'm just demonstrating. I typed it in, I hit apply, and now instead of having a long web address, it just is directly within the text. And I can click, my students can click, and it will take them to go view that resource. So as we construct, we'd add those into each of our 9 different squares and be able to then probably use something like Google Classroom, Canvas, Schoology, one of those, to be able to give each of our students their own copy. Okay, so at this point, you don't need to close out of this tab, but we are going to go back to our slides. And in the next few moments, you guys will have an opportunity to look through some of these other models. So I want to talk through how I'd like you to spend probably the next 5 minutes or so. We're going to, if you look through slides 13, 14, and 15, we have probably about 20 different examples that you can go to that show different models of choice boards. Some of them are links, like whenever you hover over one and it becomes the hand instead of the arrow, that will be a link. And in here, please click around, find ones that interest you. Please note that some of these are social emotional learning. Some are modeling how we can do no tech, low tech, high tech. But really spend some time exploring, find things that you like. And then once we've spent our 5 minutes exploring, we're all going to head to slide 16, where I have a link to a Padlet board where we can go and respond to a couple different questions. So what I'd like to happen real quick, can I have someone unmute their mic and just try to summarize how we're going to spend the next 5 minutes or so?
Hi, Adam. It's Mary Fitzgerald from Amherst County Public Schools.
Hi, Mary.
So we get to take the next 5 minutes and explore the opportunities that you have given to us on the slide.
Nailed it. And then once those 5 minutes are up, what are we going to do?
Then we're going to come back and work with you.
That's awesome. Okay, so once we're done exploring, slide 16 has a link to a Padlet where we can go and respond and share out on what we found. I do want to say that if at any point you have a question or you find something awesome, don't hesitate to unmute and ask the question or say, whoa, everybody should go check out X, Y, and Z. All right, so at this point, it's 9:22. We're going to come back together at 9:27 and be able to move on to that Padlet. So let's go ahead and explore. Okay, let's take about 30 more seconds for folks to share ideas onto the Padlet. Okay, so I do want to hear a few people respond, but I just read a message in the chat that I definitely want to address. So there's a question of, this can be overwhelming, right? There's a lot out there. Now I want you to hear, there is a reason that we all started with the tic-tac-toe board. It's simple, right? It's all right there. We come up with 9 different options for our students, and it's a great entry point. Now I know that some of you, when we're looking at those resources, you may have seen the Shake Up Learning, and there are folders of choice boards that are made by grade level that you can go back to and use as a starting point. I would definitely encourage you not to jump all the way from, I've never used a doc before yesterday, to trying to do the Minecraft or Edflix. Those are the deeper end. We can start by getting into the shallow end, try a few different things out, keep it simple. And that's going to be a theme you keep hearing from me. Keep it simple. And as you gain that confidence, continue to try some more things. So that would be my encouragement for you. As we look through these, especially the Hyperdocs, many of them are already built and have the content in there. So start with one of those. I still do. And then once you get your confidence in this type of creation, then you may take on some bigger challenges there. But I would love to hear from maybe 3 people to just reflect on, either your own experience, or maybe you read someone's post that you'd like to talk through real quick. Let's go ahead and hear from a few different people.
Well, Adam, I'll start. I'm Kathleen Wood. I'm new to New Kent Elementary. I really liked the Minecraft a lot. I thought it caught my eye right away, and I went right to it and thought, oh, this is really cool. I probably will start out with Bitmoji because it seemed a little bit more user-friendly. Minecraft, I think the kids would totally get into, but I would need a little bit more practice, I think, before I tried that one.
That's awesome. Thank you for opening up about that. And I love, I think the Bitmoji would be a great first week of school thing where you can show some of who you are have some of those common links that you, or resources that you continually go back to. And it would be, to me, a good entry point to start to build that community, even through distance learning. Thank you. Anyone else want to share out?
Adam, hi, this is Carmen Crowder
Hi,
from
Carmen.
Amherst County Public Schools. I teach second grade, and I wrote it on the aha moments. Like, my teaching second grade, so many students struggle with even typing, much less writing appropriately. And so I really like the fact that some of the choice boards weren't all on the computer, that you had to actually write things down. I think I spent too much time reading some of the things, but I was thinking about doing a Bitmoji classroom and using some things for summer learning, just to send it out to my kiddos on Class Dojo for the summer, because I haven't taken my classroom down. But I really like the fact that they can still write.
Me too. And, you know, my older son is going to be a second grader next year. And so my heart's right there. I have a friend who works in Kentucky. He teaches fifth grade in Kentucky. And he had on his choice board, build a fort and read a book. How awesome is that? Like, I tried to get my son to do that every single day. I'm like, hey, why don't we do Daddy's choice board? Go read a book in a fort. And, you know, we can build in those fun pieces. They don't have to be on a computer whatsoever. I love it. Maybe let's hear from maybe one more person.
I had a question, actually a question.
Okay.
I didn't get to see all the choice boards yet, but I got through a few of them. My favorite was the 4Cs model, because each column did those. But I did have a question. With the links that are in the choice boards, do the students have to have their own accounts to these links? Or like with Padlet, you were able just to send it out to us. We were able to just type in it. I mean, does that make sense when I asked that?
It does. So for the tools that are in my resources, I tried to make it where you do not need an account to the best of my ability. Some of the resources that I'm sharing that were made from other people, you may need an account. Now, I would encourage you to make sure that whatever you choose to include is approved by your district, that they've said, yes, this is a safe tool that we'd like to use with our students. And we also don't want our students to have to create too many accounts or juggle too many tools. That's why I like Padlet so well, because no login required other than for the person who owns the board. And Flipgrid's kind of that same idea. So I like to use tools like that.
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So at this point, we're going to head back to our slides. You can leave this tab open with the Padlet, because we will head back to this in a little bit after we're done with the Hyperdoc. So at this point, I'm sharing my screen again. You can watch it or follow along some other on your own if you'd like. But yes, we're moving into Hyperdocs. Like we did before, we're gonna skip the video here. And I'm gonna jump right into some of my favorite templates, and I'll explain why I like them. So I'm on slide 19, if you're looking at your own slides, and we do have a couple links on here. The first one that we're gonna look at is the Explore, Explain, Apply. Again, some of these models might look familiar when it comes to how we do lesson planning. I'm clicking on the picture of the Explore, Explain, Apply. And just like we saw before, this is giving you the option to use the template. I'm not going to click the blue button this time, but if you want to, you certainly can, and it will save to your drive. Once this loads, we can see, okay, it's telling me I put my title here. Then I have these 3 different phases of my lesson. The first is I'm going to put something where my students can explore. Maybe I'm putting a picture or a piece of art, or I want them to look at this YouTube video or do a game or some sort of way that they're getting engaged with the content initially, and that they're doing so independently. And then they have on the right-hand side, here's where they have what's their output. What is their artifact of learning? What process are they doing to think and interpret this resource? Then we get down to explain, and we might provide a deeper understanding. Now, keep in mind, we can still differentiate. Within this, we can have, here's an article that addresses this concept. Here is a video. Here is a podcast that might go along with it. And we can give our students choice in what type of resource they're engaging with. On the right, again, they get a task. And then finally, it's that application. What is the summative piece of what they are doing? What is the ultimate product of their engagement here? So to me, that's a very simple, easy to follow. I know we had the question of where would I start? If you are wanting the easiest entry point for a Hyperdoc, this is a good one to go back to. So at this point, I'm heading, speaking of heading back to, I'm heading back to my slides, and we're gonna quickly talk through 2 more formats for Hyperdocs, and then we'll be able to explore some. This next one is probably, and it even says that, my go-to template. I use this one regularly. I'm going to click on one of my examples, but do know that I have the regular template linked above. So I do a lot of professional development. I'm sure that that's not a huge surprise for y'all. I developed this one for Norfolk schools a couple years ago, and we had a day-long exploration of what Hyperdoc, or not what Hyperdocs are, but what personalized learning means. So we started off with what's our call to action. This is going to be a common thing. Everyone in the group got this Hyperdoc, and I wanted it to be a common starting point, but after that, they could move in any order that they wanted to, explore any resources that they wanted to, but this was the common piece. Then we get into a mix of physical things that our learners can do. We also had some digital things that they could do. This first one was go to the front of the room, open up an envelope, and sort these different definitions, and then tell me how you sorted them and what trends you saw. So just because it's an electronic, or this is a digital resource, not all of the learning and interaction needs to be done that way. Continuing down, I have here some resources, and then I give my students a place directly in here where they can take notes, and then they can also reflect on it. And I wanted to make that as close to the content as possible so that they're not bouncing back and forth between 3 different Google Docs, some slides, and other things. All of it is directly in line. And so we kind of run through it that way, but then at the very end, we again have that common place of reflection, that common place where we can put our artifacts of their learning. And I used a Padlet wall. I don't always use Padlet, I promise you, but for this activity I did. And then finally, Hyperdoc, the people behind it, looked at, well, here are 5 or 6 different lesson plans that a lot of teachers we work with are using. Let's find a way, a lot of them have some similar content to it. So let's synthesize it and put it into a common framework. And so they developed the Hyperdoc lesson plan template, which I have loading up right now. And once it opens, you'll see there are elements of the 5E lesson plan model that I use personally whenever I'm planning professional development or working with a teacher. To me, it's a framework that I don't have to overthink, and it gives me a structure that is sound. It is taking a moment. So in here, our students, what do we want them to engage with? Then they have time to go and look a little bit further through the explore phase. They will report back out explaining something, and then they get an application, they share, they reflect, and we can even move into an extension activity directly in here. So how this would work, I would add my content in here, personalize it for my classroom. Once it's complete, I would make a copy for each student in Google Classroom or in Schoology, whatever it might be. And then they only turn in 1 artifact to me. It's not a list of 5 different, they don't have to submit 15 different things. They submit 1 document to me, and I get to capture that lesson or that entire unit of learning. Now, I want you to think about this. Just because it says a lesson title, this can be for an entire unit. I've worked with people where every week they might have a different Hyperdoc that they put out, or it might be this is for the entire novel unit that we're doing, or the entire types of cells, and we can build it with that type of intentionality. All right, so I'm heading back to our slides. I'm going to slide 20 right now. And similar to what we did with our choice boards, we're going to replicate it right now. And on slide 20, I have links to the different templates that Hyperdocs uses. We'll take a quick look there. So when we click that template button, on the left-hand side, these are the blank templates, and you can click on any of these and it will take you. We've already looked at the basic Hyperdoc and explore, explain, apply. 5Es, as I said, is one of my favorites. Then on the right-hand side, these are examples of it. So if I want to see a basic Hyperdoc lesson in action, I can click where it says Creative Writing Challenge, and it shows me how one educator has used this. This next link, lessons, these are pre-built. So we're not only using the templates, but we're also being able to go in and find things about mathematics or professional development. Well, I guess we won't focus on that. Reading and writing, history and geography. When we click on one of these, opens up into a folder in Google Drive, and all of these are available for you to make copies of. And when you make a copy of this, it's going to save in your Google Drive, and you're able to adapt it however you need to. So if we wanted to make a copy, I want to show you what that process looks like. So after you've gone through, you've reviewed it, we're going to click Make a Copy. Nope, sorry, that's not what we want to do. We want to go into the document itself. Then in the top left, it says File. And from here, we're going to choose Make a Copy. And this allows us to pick what folder it goes to. If you just do make a copy and don't choose a different folder, it's going to be saved in the Hyperdoc folder that you don't own. So what we want to do, it says name and then folder. We click on the folder name of history/social studies, and you'll notice at the top left is a back button. We want to click on that and now select My Drive. When I do that, it's going to add this Hyperdoc to my drive, my Google Drive, so I can go back and use it in the future. So now this is my own copy. I can make whatever changes I want, and it won't impact any other users as well. Okay. So we have spent a couple minutes. I'm going to give you guys 3 minutes to explore the different templates and lessons. And then as we did before, we'll move on to the next slide, which is a link back to our Padlet where we can share out. So again, 3 minutes of exploration, and then I'll bring us back together at that. I saw a great question in the chat. What makes it a Hyperdoc? I think, sadly, the answer is good branding. They were able to, a couple years ago, label it as Hyperdoc, and I think the idea was that they're using hyperlinks within a Google Doc to be able to take students to a variety of places. But really, I think it is branding for the most part. But I do like the idea behind giving the students, here's the learning plan, you work through it, being able to bring in different resources. I'm fully on board with that part, but I do think there's a big element of marketing involved there. Jennifer nailed it. That's right. So we'll take another 30 seconds or so, and then we'll come back together and move to reflecting on our Padlet page. Okay, I think a few people had questions about how to get to the templates on slide 20. It says even more examples, and the first link on there is template. So that's how in the future you can get back to it. You can also, on your own, if you ever need to get back to it without going to my slides, do a search for Hyperdoc templates, and it should be the first one in there for you. All right, so at this point, what I'd like everybody to do is go back to our Padlet. I know some of you might still have that tab open. If you don't, no need to worry. Slide 21, I have the link in there again so that we can get back and reflect on a few more of those pieces. All right, so let's take another 30 seconds or so to add ideas to our Padlet. And then we'll have some time where you guys can share out verbally as well. So I'm seeing a few people say that this is a lot to take in, and that there's a desire to have more time to work on this. We haven't gotten to it yet, but slide 24 has a single word on it, and it's simple. Please start by borrowing what other people have done. Remixing it for your students in your classroom. Use the templates that already exist. When possible, use a Hyperdoc that already is created and just go in and make it fit what your goals are. Don't start from scratch and think that you have to jump all the way in. Please, please, please. And I see another Vassal course to explore more of the content being introduced. In the next few days, we will be announcing the 6th and 7th series of sessions, and we'll have some on like full work time on building choice boards and Hyperdocs. So those will be, I think, some smaller groups. We'll use breakout rooms where you can go and work with Eric, John, and myself and get some feedback on how you're doing. So look out for that in the coming days or weeks. All right, so let's hear from a few different people who would like to share out what you found or maybe some aha moments that you may have had.
Hi, this is Vicki Hubbard from Amherst Schools, Amherst County. And I checked out one of the math pieces that was Algebra 1, and they were looking at rate of change and slope, and started out not with the math, but started out with a real life problem. What if you were hiking and you needed to know what the slope was that you were hiking, which is wonderful. Because a lot of our kids wonder, you know, how am I going to use this in life, or how does this relate to anything in real life? So I really liked that. I think that would be exciting.
That sounds great. I love that. And with where my family lives, being so close to the mountains, like we're hiking all the time, and being able to apply to, you know, a common interest that a lot of our kids would have. Thank you for sharing. That's great. Anyone else want to share out?
My name is Maria Diegas, and I'm from Stafford County Public Schools. Not only are we giving kids choices, but we're giving teachers choices as well. And it's a learning process, but I think this is where we need to move towards.
I love that. And one outcome that you're going to find when we have students, when we give students the option of choosing how they demonstrate their learning, is that we're no longer getting, you know, I taught high school English. I'm not getting 90 of the same essays in the same format anymore. I'm getting one song. I'm getting one computer program that someone wrote. I'm getting these 9 different videos, and I'm getting a multitude of things that makes my job far more enjoyable, because I'm getting to see my students' interests, skills, hobbies, personalities on display, along with the content that I'm passing along to them. So thank you very much. At this point, we're going to head back to our slides and begin to wrap up. Keep in mind, we do have a Q&A that you can continue with for maybe 10 minutes or so after we wrap up. One final piece before we get formally into the wrap up: think through how you can build community into these activities. For this session, I used Padlet, right? And we kept going back, and then we were able to do a discussion. And so you might give them a Padlet, and then later in the week have, well, we're going to come back together and discuss the people's posts, and have that scheduled check-in time for a video meeting. You can do shared notes and slides. So for this, I often will give, here's a topic on as the header or the title for 10 different slides, and everybody goes and communally contributes ideas in there, so that we get, if there's an expert on this one concept, they're able to apply their knowledge. If there's an expert on another, they can add a YouTube video that they found, or whatever it might be. And then again, Flipgrid is another favorite for people being able to reflect, pose questions, and then engage with one another in a safe way. Finally, I know a lot of you are using Classroom or a learning management system, and almost all of those have some form of a discussion board, so you can always utilize that as well. So as we look at the wrap up, the point is to keep it simple. Please do not jump in by starting with the Fortnite example or by doing EdFlix. Those are amazing. You may get there one day. I don't even know if I'm fully there yet, but keep it simple. Every single presentation you go to of mine, I'm using templates that other people have made, giving them credit. You know, I think that that's fair. I'm able to focus on the content. You become able to focus on the learning objectives that you're trying to do, not on becoming the best designer out there. That is not your goal as an educator, is to wow people with design. It's your goal to help them to access content and to grow intellectually as people, whatever it might be. Keep it simple. So with that being said, I do want to give thanks to 4 people who have made this possible. John and Eric, who have been amazing moderators. I keep getting notices every time a question comes up, and I know that you guys have been busy helping everybody. So thank you both so much. Also, thank you to Pam and Liza for insisting that all of these sessions are free to our educators. So thank you for allowing this to happen. And like I said before, be on the lookout. There are some additional sessions and opportunities coming up in the coming weeks. Finally, thank you guys for being here. You can stick around for questions and answers in just a couple moments. I do ask that you leave some feedback, good, bad, indifferent, whatever it might be. On slide 20 something, what are we on? 29. It is a different link today than what it was in the past. Please head to bit.ly/3E76XNX. All of those letters are lowercase, so keep that in mind. There's a short feedback form. Please answer it, and if you'd like to get a renewal certificate, fill it out as well. I think I worked out all the issues that were going on yesterday, so it should come to you much quicker today. Thank you all so much, and later today you'll get an email from me with links to our resources, as well as a link to the feedback form in case you missed it the first time. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as I say every day, you can stick around for Q&A. Thank you for being here. If you're in our next session, I'll see you again in about half an hour. Bye, guys.
Quick point for people who want the recertification survey, you do need to click at the bottom. Yes, you want that recertification certificate, and then please make sure you fill it out accurately or else it can't possibly come to you. So thank you.
Yes, please double check your email address, especially. We got probably 10 people yesterday where it wasn't able to be sent to you because you might have missed a letter or a punctuation somewhere in there.
And you can get old